Hey, this is Nathan Quarry, Nate Rock Quarry, with another episode of MMA Talk. I've decided this is going to be kind of an ongoing thing. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the first video that I shot. Check my YouTube page to see that. I covered Junior Dos Santos versus Cain Velasquez, the upcoming Vitor Belfort, Michael Bisping fights, and the upcoming Bellator fight. Just wanted to cover the fights of last night. The biggest show around was the Invicta fights. InvictaFC.com, I believe, is the website. If you missed the live broadcast, you can see it at MMAweekly.com and Ustream.tv. Catch the whole show. They had some difficulties with the broadcast. It was originally supposed to be a pay-per-view, but because of those difficulties, they made the streaming of the fights live free. I've known Shannon Knapp, the promoter, for many years now, since she was working with the name of the promotion escapes me at the moment. That's my biggest drawback. I'm terrible with names. But she's just been doing an incredible job putting on these fights. This is the fourth Invicta fights. Main event was headed by Carla Cookie Monster Esparza and Beck Rowdy Hyatt. Hyatt took the fight last minute as Esparza's opponent got injured, nose broken in 5 places, and so this was somewhat of a last-minute fight. Hyatt was already training for another bout, but going from a 3-round fight to a 5-round title fight. Obviously, spoiler alert. If you see my videos, just expect a spoiler alert. I don't have to say it every time or listen to somebody complain that I didn't say it. Esparza walked into the ring at 5'1", Hyatt at 5'6". Esparza also a great wrestler, one of the best wrestlers in women's MMA. So as you would expect, Esparza dominated the fight with her takedowns. That was her main tool. Hyatt, mostly a kickboxer. To her credit, she didn't throw many kicks. If you're fighting a wrestler and you're a kickboxer, don't throw a lot of kicks. The key for takedowns for a wrestler versus a kickboxer is to follow the kick in. Some basic mistakes that Hyatt made, again, taking this fight at last minute. Kind of what I want to cover in these broadcasts is the process of the fight, what both fighters did, what they could have done differently. For Hyatt at 5'6", she definitely had a reach advantage. One of the things that taller fighters quite often do is they punch down to their opponent. So they're even if they're throwing their punch from their jaw to their opponent's face, they're shooting it down 3 or 4 inches. It'll take a little bit longer to get there. It also leaves them more susceptible to takedowns. If you're a taller fighter and you're really concerned about takedowns from your opponent, change your level. That means squat down. Don't stand quite as tall. That's going to allow your punches to get there from point A to B, your chin to their chin, as fast as possible. Something I covered in the Junior Dos Santos Cain Velasquez fight. If you're fighting a wrestler, no matter what your style is, if you don't want to be taken down, make your lead leg a little bit heavier. Kickboxers generally have a weight distribution of 40% lead leg, 60% rear leg. It's going to make it easier for them to check kicks, faster for their lead kicks to come out. If you're fighting a wrestler and you look at a wrestler's stance in just a pure wrestling match, their lead leg is very heavy. You want to make sure that their lead leg is not picked up. They can sprawl, they can drop their hips to the mat very easily. Hyatt didn't do that. She maintained her stance very high, made it very difficult for her to sprawl. Try this if you're standing up and you got 50-50 weight distribution. Try to sprawl down. Or even worse, make your lead leg a little light. You need to drop your hips straight down to the mat for an effective sprawl. Now make your lead leg very heavy and try your sprawl. It's actually going to be quite a bit easier there. So as Hyatt got taken down over and over again, starting out the show, as far as it took her down almost immediately, Hyatt was very good at regaining her guard. A lot of it she was trying to tie up Esparza from the bottom. She was landing some shots. Word of advice, if you're fighting a wrestler, look at this wrestler's style. How many times has the wrestler been submitted? Look at someone like John Fitch. How many times has he been submitted while being on top of someone? Never. How is your jiu-jitsu compared to his opponents? Are you much better than the other guys that have fought John Fitch? Are your odds of submitting John Fitch from the bottom ridiculously high? Then cool. Pull guard, control John Fitch where he goes, submit him, get him in a triangle armbar from the bottom, whatever the case may be, awesome. If that's not the case, while you still need to have a good basic jiu-jitsu, your priority needs to be standing up. People generally do not win fights from the bottom. I don't care how many strikes you're landing, submission attempts. To the judges, if you're on the bottom, you look like you are not in a dominant position. MMA has developed its own fighting techniques. Wrestling is done on a mat, jiu-jitsu is done on a mat, boxing is done in a ring, kickboxing done in a ring. None of those sports have punches on the ground. None of those sports are done in a cage. MMA itself has had to develop stand-ups off the bottom, using the cage to stand up, what we call wall walking. If you have a jiu-jitsu coach and all they're training you is jiu-jitsu, boxing coach, Muay Thai coach, all they're training you is in their specific disciplines, you need to spend time working on specific MMA techniques such as standing up off the bottom. Height was very good with getting guard retention, but against a wrestler who's very dominant from the top, her main focus from the bottom needed to be standing up. Not guard retention, not going for submissions. Again, look at your opponent. If they're not giving up submissions, and it's so much easier to learn to defend submissions from the top than it is to apply submissions from the bottom, especially if your opponent is a good wrestler with no neck, very hard to get them in those submissions, especially when jiu-jitsu is mostly based on gi work. It's going to be a lot harder to pull someone's arms into a triangle or an armbar. Those are the things you really need to work on. If you've ever done a seminar with me, my rhyme for getting up off the bottom is elbow, hand, knee, stand. You get taken down, you're on your back, you come to your side. This would make more sense if I was there. Come to your elbow, come to your hand, bring your knee up, and stand right up. I've got a whole drill developed to get up off the bottom. When I was training at Team Quest, everyone assumed that because I was a Team Quest fighter, I must be this dominant wrestler. Not the case. I've never wrestled a day in my life, but I did train every day with Couture, Henderson, Lindland, Chael Sonnen, and I'm not going to get a takedown against those guys. I did get put on my back practice after practice after practice, day after day, so I had to develop my standing from the bottom. Another problem that I see a lot of guys making, I did this in this fight, going for a guillotine. If I'm an MMA coach and I'm working with somebody who's completely green, I am not going to teach them a guillotine for a very long time. If you're doing buddy carries as a part of your conditioning, what do? Your partner squats down underneath you, you reach over their head, they lift you up, makes it a lot easier to carry you across the room. When you're going for a guillotine, that's what everyone does. They go over the head and immediately they put their weight on the back of their opponent, allowing them to drive forward, to pick them up, to get the takedown. Guillotines are a lot harder to get in actual fights than they are in the practice room. Instead of reaching over the head, whether you're against the cage or sprawling, reach under the head. She also, was crowding her punches. And that's a big tendency to do these things. You get excited, you land a few shots, you're moving forward. You need to maintain your range. Again, keep your level low, throw straight punches. That said, my time's just about up. What a great fight it was. Much props to Hyatt. She did great coming in last minute, taking this fight, going all 5 rounds. She was amazing. She did really well, especially at the end of the 4th round. Got up off the bottom a few times, had great combinations. Her stand-up was incredible. As far as I was just so dominant with her wrestling, though. So, once again, this is Nate Quarry, your zombie cage fighter, zombiecagefighter.com. Thanks for checking out the video. If you got any feedback for me, go ahead and leave it. Contact me if you've got any subjects you'd like me to talk about. I'll be talking about upcoming fights, past fights, anything that you want me to talk about. Just shoot me a message. I'd be more than happy to. Awesome. Thank you for being a fan of MMA and letting me follow my dream. Peace.